What's up, guys? Chad here with the Reptile Rangers. Now we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center again today. We're going to talk about caring for and keeping monitors. Okay? Now, before we get into that, right there in that corner way over there is our subscriber button. Make sure you hit that if you have not already, and for those that already have, we appreciate you subscription and following along week after week after week. Now, first, right out of the gate, let me be clear in saying this. I'm not going to cover every single aspect of every single species of monitor. That would take a very, very long time. This is going to be covering different portions of some species that's readily kept in captivity. We're going to talk about quite a few different aspects of monitor keeping. The goods, and there are some bads too. But these are amazing, amazingly beautiful, wonderful animals when the right kind of time and care is put into them. All right? Now, let's get started. First, let's talk about baby monitors. All right? The most readily available monitors are typically the cheap monitors. Now, cheap is not always best. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I love the Nile monitors. They're a lot of fun. They're beautiful animals. They're cheap, and so are a lot of the times the water monitors, the Asian water monitors and the Javas. Okay? And the biggest issue is most of the time, yes, they're some of the cheapest ones, the least expensive ones on the market, but also they tend to be the ones that die the most often because they're either farm-born and imported or just straight up wild-caught and imported. And so they come in with a lot of health issues. They come in extremely stressed out. Big time stressed out, which is very, very difficult for these guys and can be difficult not only for their health, but also for their appetite, for getting them to socialize and things like that. It takes a very, very, very long time. You don't typically find too many people breeding especially the Nile monitor. You do find some people that breed them, absolutely. There are some people that do, but not many. Same goes for the water monitor. Not many people breed them because they're just so cheaply brought in. It costs more to breed them, so it would cost more for you to buy them. Now, with that being said, when we start talking about habitats of monitors, understand that most of the monitors you're going to keep outside of, especially the Savannah monitor, but the Savannah monitor is going to be one of those different ones, and that's another one on the cheap end that does not really do well in captivity. They do tend to settle down fairly well. It's probably 65, 70% of the time you can get Savannahs to settle down. They do tend to be one of the more easier ones to keep in captivity. However, Savannahs have a high death rate too because they are farmed and imported. Or even if somebody does actually breed them in the United States, a lot of the times they tend to be sent out long before they're just really established. Okay, so they're not given a great start on life. But with that being said, when we start talking about the habitat of monitors, understand if you're going to get a monitor, you must be prepared for the size that they're going to get to later on down the road and the size enclosure that you're going to have. For example, this is one of our juvenile pens here in the zoo. This water monitor right here is only about 3 feet. And you can see how massive this thing is. It's a huge pen. It didn't really cost a whole heck of a lot to build in the grand scope of. All right, so it's not like we're talking, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You can do very nice custom built yourself enclosures similar to this. And there is no real perfect habitat when it comes to these guys, when it comes to captivity. There's many ways in which people do it. Some people do open air, big, massive open air cages. They can climb the screen, they can climb the leaf litter, they can climb all that kind of stuff. They do these big, massive open air cages. And some folks will do enclosed stuff like this, completely enclosed. There is no real full right or wrong when it comes to enlargements, massive size of closures, as long as they have the space. Now, you can do it wrong by doing it too small, absolutely. But when it comes to just building big pens, there is no real right or wrong in dimensions is what I'm meaning, okay? So when we start talking about the dimensions of size, as long as it's just big, okay? Just big. So we want to make sure that you understand, as I gave him a little food, we want to make sure that you understand that these habitats have to be large, okay? Okay, guys, so let's talk about diet for a little while, okay? With the monitor species, you have several different species that eat fruit, almost strictly fruit. Yes, they will still forage from time to time, bugs, meat, whatever. Those you're generally not going to see in captivity because they are a rare or more protected species, okay? You also have some that are insectivore species, a few. They eat insects most all of their life. Then you have your generalized standard species, like most of them, that start off insectivorous, like Thor here, and the Nile monitor, the Savannah monitor, the peach throat, the black throat, the croc, the green tree, just the list goes on and on. The mangrove. There's a bunch of species that start off insectivorous, but will eat, as they grow, a wide variety of things, including they'll forage and raid nests, eating eggs, crocodilian, alligators, birds. They'll also eat all kinds of different meat. Now understand, we also have to be very careful about the meat that we do when we're in captivity. In the wild, it's, dare I say the word fresh meat, a fresh kill, but it doesn't have all the preservatives, the steroids, all that garbage and crap that we as humans put into food. It doesn't have all that stuff. So you can do any things like ground beef, chicken, turkey, fish, deer meat. I mean, any kind of meat products you can do. You just have to understand the meat that you're feeding and understand the portions that they need to have, the calorie, protein, nutritional count that's in what they're in, and understand how often to or not to feed. When they're young, again, they are primarily insectivorous. Stay away from crickets as best as possible. Again, if you remember and have followed any of the rest of our videos, crickets, there's absolutely nothing nutritional to crickets, and crickets cause intestinal parasites. They go around re-ingesting their own feces. Crickets are a waste of money. It's trash food. You can do things like superworms and mealworms and dubia roaches and hissing roaches and tomato hornworms, bot flies, waxworms, phoenix worms, butterworms. The list goes on. You can even do grasshoppers as long as there's no chemical issues from fertilizers, from pesticides, things like that. You can do stuff like that too, because they would in the wild. Candle flies, moths, whatever. But understand, as babies, they do eat insects, but as you can be transferring them over to the meat product, be transferring them over. Offer it. For the first few months of life, it's going to be almost strictly bugs. But you can offer things like, and again, go back to previous videos, you can offer things like mice pinkies, but again, mice are like crickets. There's really nothing nutritional to them. Mice is just tendons and bones, and that's in the best of circumstances. There's no fatty content to them, hardly at all. So stick to the rat pinkies, or even African soft furs. You can do things like gerbils, hamsters, stuff like that, but that can be awfully expensive. And if it's something that they prefer, good luck trying to find it all the time. So rat pinkies is a great way to start them over. A little bit of ground beef, just no extra garbage, just ground beef. Little steak chunks, chicken chunks, things like that. Turkey chunks, just small chunks of meat cut up appropriate size for them to be able to take. If it can fit between the eyes, they can take it. Any rule of thumb for just about any lizard, if it can fit between the eyes. Smaller than the distance between the eyes, it's perfect for them, okay? Understand, if the temperature is not warm enough, and as you see, he's staying right there. There's a light source, a heat emitter, a light source. So 8 inches apart is 3 lights. 3 heating sources, 2 that are light, 1 that is a heat emitter. That gives him plenty of heat up top. When he climbs up, he's able to bask. When he climbed down in the water a little while ago, you seen him climb down in the water. I actually looked down in there and watched him. He had that tail raised up. He was having a bowel movement inside the water. Understand, they will do this in the water, okay? Talking about diet, going back over to the habitat for a minute, they will go to the bathroom a lot in the water. So you need to make sure that that your water stays clean. Now, does it have to be perfectly crystal clear as a zoo? No, but you don't want it filthy neither, because that's nasty, and that's creating bacteria inside the water that your monitor will there in turn ingest. So have a filtration system on it, or keep the water regularly changed out, so that way it doesn't get a lot of bad bacteria inside of the water dish. Not a bad idea when they are babies, especially if they come in. A lot of your importers, if they're a good wholesaler, they will do what's called a dewormer to try and make sure to parasite free the animal or get rid of any intestinal parasites that the animal may come in with. Check them for ticks, check them for mites, check them for all kinds of things. When you're either if you've ordered one and you brought it in, make sure you're checking it. If you're at one of these crappy expos, then check it before you're done. No, you're not going to be able to check it for intestinal parasites, but you can check it for ticks, for mites, for other such issues. When it comes to checking your animal, if they have, even babies, they're going to be skinny, yes, but if there's a lot of hip structure showing, really skinny legs, there's not much meat to the legs, avoid it like the plague. Walk away from it. Even little monitors will be a little bit plump. If they're healthy, they'll be a little bit plump. The base of the tail right there it will look thick, will look a little bit muscly, and there'll be a little bit of structure of meaty content to their legs, muscle structure and meaty content. It won't be all bone. You can tell the difference between bone and a real heavy hip structure and one that is thick, not fat, just thick and plump like it's supposed to be. Water sources can be anything you want, okay? Understand, anything you want, any size that you want, it just needs to be a big water source, because remember, the monitors absolutely love playing in water. Most of your species absolutely love it. It's kind of interesting when we start talking about setting up and climate controlling your habitat, because some of these basking spots that a lot of your monitors will have, you're talking 125, 130 degree basking spots, but down here, and if we temp gun it down here, it would be in the 80s, okay? This spot right here, if I remember correctly, is like 95, 96, 97 degrees. He likes going to this one. He'll go up here some, and then he'll come down here, and then sometimes he'll hide over there in the corner where it's in the low 80s. So you need to make sure you have some really, really hot spots. Now, most of your monitors, where most people make their mistakes, is they just want to give, especially if you buy this baby, or somebody buys a baby and they put them in these little 30-gallon and 40-gallon and 55-gallon tanks. They want to give them just this little water dish. That does not cut it. Most of your monitor species are forested or tropical species. Most, not all, but generally speaking, most of the species you're going to keep in, again, remember, save the Savannah monitor, most of the species love water. So big, massive water sources is hugely key. Now again, as babies, you don't want to give a baby something like that. Chances of it drowning will be high if you don't give it anything really to be able to climb out on. If you're going to give it a big water source, make sure it can't get stuck, it can't get injured or whatever. It's easy to get out of the water to get back out on land to climb. Okay? And at the same time, understand that some of these species, like the water monitor, the blackthroat, and the croc monitor, are not too terribly far off in size and girth from the Komodo dragon. They are related to the Komodo. They are smaller, but like the water monitor, especially the Asian water monitor, is not that much smaller than the Komodo. They get pretty doggone big, anywhere from about 7 to 9 feet. Your croc monitor is about 7.5 feet. And the blackthroat monitor is almost the same. So there are some species that get absolutely large. So you have to be prepared for the size that it's going to get to. They absolutely love climbing. Some are better than others at it. All right, some of your tree monitors are much better at climbing than some of your heavy-bodied. Now understand, once your bigger monitors do get to a larger size, they will climb from time to time, but they do tend to stay more to the ground. We had an Asian monitor for years and years. He was an old man. He loved climbing up on things like this, even at his size, and he was good at it. He was about 6.5, 7 foot. However, understand that they need a lot of land space too, because, for example, with iguanas or water dragons, you can give them a lot of height and not a heck of a lot of ground, because they may not be on the ground a lot of the times. They may stay high and only come to the ground for food or for water. With these guys right here, they will forage on the ground. Okay, so understand, they like to dig. So in part of your habitat, if you put bedding and stuff in there, they'll root all through it. We did not do it in this one. As you'll see in another video of another one of our juvenile Nile monitors in its habitat, you'll see tons of bedding, and you'll see plenty of tunnels and burrows where the animal has dug. Remember, they also have incredibly sharp claws, incredible jaws, and serious teeth. That can be a big disadvantage for the keeper. Getting these guys to socialize depends on the species as to the length of time that it may take. A lot of people bash on the Nile monitor, and the Nile monitor is an awesome species, okay? The water monitor is an awesome species. The water monitor tends to be much easier and quicker to settle down than what your Nile monitor does. But the Nile monitors, there are plenty of examples online, people that I know that have Nile monitors. It did not take them too terribly long to get those animals what we call socialized. But socialization comes from building trust, okay? So again, with these guys right here, with any type of monitor species, and to include the tegus, it's about building trust. And there's many different ways in which you can socialize your monitor. You can do it through acclimation of just sitting inside of the pen or sitting at the edge of the pen, just letting him get used to your presence. You can do it through, remember, tweezer feeding, then hand feeding. Keeping these animals on live food will keep that aggression level much higher. So by taking them, especially first off of live food, their aggression level starts coming down because they don't have that hunting drive, that prey drive. By not allowing them to chase the food or aggressively go after the food, making it look like it's alive or anything like that, also helps to bring that aggression level down. But you can just socialize these animals just simply by getting into their presence, into their pen, letting them free roam in an enclosed area, that they still have access back into their pen, and just sitting inside of that. A lot of it is just them learning to trust your presence. These animals are fairly intelligent too. They're not quite as smart as the tegus, but they are fairly intelligent. So you can clicker train them, you can voice train them, you can word train them, sound train them to different aspects. For example, a food command or a petting command. Ours is easy for petting. Come means you're going to pick them up. But again, everything over time. You don't want to just go grabbing them because remember, predation does come from these guys a lot of the times overhead. So coming over them and just reaching up and grabbing them is a very bad way to try and build that bond and get them used to the handling. Because right out of the instance is, ah crap, something's coming to get me. So make sure that you understand that in socializing these animals, it's all about finesse. It's all about building up that bond and that trust. But understand, these guys are still apex predators. They do still have fairly significant jaw power and incredibly sharp teeth meant for tearing into things. Their claws are meant for climbing and also ripping flesh. So be aware of that and understand the risks that comes behind having a 5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8 foot plus big, massive monitor lizard. That is also why it's equally important to make sure that you have these animals socialized and they're not still wild. You're not treating them rough, dealing with them roughly, giving them live food all the time, keeping that aggression level high. Monitor species will tail whip. They do have the same instincts as the iguanas do when it comes to tail whipping. They can, and it does hurt. They can also lose their tail when they smack. If they smack something too hard, it can cause damage to their tail and cause their tails to fall off. As you see right now, after he just got done eating that meal, he's up under one of the hottest parts of this pen. One of the big issues when it comes to people not keeping their monitors right is not keeping them warm enough or giving them warm enough areas. One of the big medical issues that comes with monitor species especially, they do have a high obesity rating, so you absolutely have to control their diets. A lot of people think they're supposed to feed them every single day, even as they get bigger every single day. Absolutely false. Do not. And especially in the wintertime, if you don't have them in a full climate controlled building, you don't have them in a full climate controlled habitat where they're having regular bowel movements, you may even cut their feedings back in the wintertime because they can become impacted. Prolapsing is really prone in these guys, impaction and prolapse. They're very, very prone to them. So if you start seeing a heavy amount of bloating and that bloating doesn't go down, don't continue piling food on there or you'll kill your monitor. So again, understand these guys have a real propensity for not only obesity because of overfeeding, but also impaction and prolapsing due to the same thing. Overeating and not enough hot spots or not enough heat inside the pen for them to have bowel movements and pushing old food out before compiling new food into the digestive tract and in the stomach. Monitors are very rewarding animals. There are some absolutely beautifully colored monitors out there. Your peach throat monitors, your green tree monitors, the mangrove monitors, and there's many others. There are some beautiful ones, but understand and keep in mind that the rarer the monitor, the more expensive it becomes. And some of your expensive ones are wild caught too, depending on where you get it from. If you go through some of your wholesalers, absolutely a lot of those are absolutely wild caught and imported. And understand that these guys are going to come in incredibly stressed out, and they're going to be not only flighty, but aggressive in the senses of where folks actually put their hands on them. They will try biting, they'll try defecating. There's all kinds of different defense mechanisms that your monitor species has, including that snake-like neck that is not quite like a crocodilian or an alligator. If you've ever subdued one or worked with one, you know you can hold an alligator right behind the head on the neck, and they can't bite. These guys right here, you hold too far down the neck, and they're still going to get bit because they can turn their head far enough. Their neck is flexible enough. Their neck is flexible enough to be able to get around and bite whatever is holding them. Understand these guys are 100%, especially when it comes to being a socialized animal in your home. It's about trust and building up that sense of not being them, okay, understand, not being hurt, them not being hurt or predated upon as if they would be in the wild. Now, when we're talking juvenile species of monitor species, it's best to go the captive born and bred route. And I want to point out something. When it says CB, that means captive born. That means nothing more than parents were wild caught, they had eggs, and the eggs were hatched in captivity in some form or fashion. It's still wild babies. Just because it was born in captivity doesn't mean it was captive, born, and bred. So understand the terminology. CBB means captive, born, and bred. It was bred in captivity. It is best to find places that do quality breed animals like this. They're going to have a much better start to life. They're going to have less health issues. When you start breeding in captivity, you breed out a lot of the natural aggression, a lot of the natural health issues, and you also breed in good habits. It still takes time, still takes trust. You're going to have your untrusting, what we would consider bad apples in the group, but you'll also have much more socialized, well-mannered, easy-tempered animals that have been bred for generations, and a lot of that generational or wild individual bad habits has been bred out of those animals. Now, there's several places throughout the United States and maybe in other countries that do breed different monitor species. And there are folks that absolutely love monitor species. They live their life more for the monitor species. It's just their personal interest. So there's a lot of information that can be had about these, but they are an amazing, dare I say the word pet. I try and avoid that word because we're still talking about wild animals, but they are an amazing pet when they're dealt with correctly, when they come from the right areas, when they come from the right places, when they have the right start on life. These different species of monitors absolutely make wonderful household additions to a family. Now, this is Chad. We are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. This is Caring for and Keeping Monitor Species. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you've enjoyed Thor, as well as one of our female Niles over there, our juvenile Niles that you will have seen in the video in the corner there. This is Caring for and Keeping Monitor Species. Again, feel free to write us in, leave comments, let us know of other things you want us to film about. We do appreciate you guys following along and your subscription. We appreciate you getting with us and letting us know of other things that you would like to have us do in video. Our information will be in the description below for those needing to get in touch with us. We'll either see you here at the zoo or we'll see you on the next episode. Later.